Lewis Hamilton is reportedly furious because Ferrari may have just lost the one innovation that could have changed everything. And the FIA did not ban a small upgrade. They targeted the exact system Ferrari secretly built their entire future around. A hidden aerodynamic concept so powerful, insiders believe it was worth up to half a second per lap. Half a second. In Formula One, that is not an advantage. That is total domination. And here is where this story becomes explosive. Ferrari reportedly redesigned huge sections of the SF26 just to make this concept work. The transmission, the rear packaging, the airflow around the entire back of the car. Then rival teams saw the numbers. Mercedes reacted. Red Bull reacted. McLaren reacted. And the moment the paddock realized Ferrari may have discovered the next big breakthrough in Formula One, the FIA suddenly moved towards shutting the whole thing down for 2027. Now, the atmosphere inside Ferrari is reportedly becoming unbearable because Hamilton did not leave Mercedes to join a rebuilding project. He joined Ferrari believing they were building a championship machine capable of making history again. But this gets even worse. The FIA is not stopping with one restriction. They are also targeting Ferrari's halo winglets, tightening engine regulations, and closing multiple gray areas Ferrari exploited better than anyone else on the grid. And inside the paddock, one question is spreading incredibly fast. Did Ferrari actually break the rules? Or did they simply build a car so advanced that Formula One panicked the moment everyone else started falling behind? At first, almost nobody outside Ferrari understood what they were really looking at. That is what makes this entire situation so shocking now. Because when Ferrari introduced the flick-tail mode concept, most people inside Formula One treated it like another clever engineering experiment. Interesting, creative, but probably too extreme to become a true long-term advantage. Then the data started spreading through the paddock. And suddenly the atmosphere changed completely. Because Ferrari was not finding small gains. They were finding the kind of performance advantage that can decide world championships. The system used hot exhaust gases to accelerate airflow underneath the rear diffuser, increasing rear stability and improving aerodynamic efficiency at the same time. Now, that sounds extremely technical, but the effect on the car was actually very simple. It gave drivers confidence, and confidence in Formula One is priceless. Imagine driving at the limit on a wet road. The rear of the car feels nervous. Every corner feels unpredictable. Then suddenly the car becomes calm exactly when you push hardest. That is essentially what Ferrari created. More rear grip, more stability, more trust in the car during high-speed cornering. And for Lewis Hamilton, that could have changed everything. Because one of Hamilton's biggest frustrations in recent years has been unstable rear-end behavior. Cars that suddenly snap during corner entry. Cars that force him to hesitate instead of attacking naturally. In Formula One, hesitation costs tenths instantly. Ferrari believed this system could remove that hesitation completely. And according to the report, the internal estimates were massive. Conservative calculations already suggested around 0.2 per lap. But Ferrari reportedly believed the concept could deliver gains approaching half a second under ideal conditions. Half a second. That is enormous in modern Formula One. To understand how terrifying that advantage really is, imagine two Olympic runners racing side by side, except one athlete secretly starts several meters ahead before the race even begins. That is what half a second feels like at the front of Formula One. And Ferrari was so convinced by the concept that they rebuilt major parts of the entire car around it. The team reportedly redesigned the full transmission layout of the SF26 just to integrate the system correctly. That is an extraordinary gamble. Because changing transmission architecture affects almost every area of the car. Weight balance, suspension behavior, cooling, packaging, reliability. Everything becomes interconnected. Teams do not take risks like that unless they believe they have found something revolutionary. And Ferrari clearly believed exactly that. But here is where this story becomes even more dramatic. The system was not free in terms of performance. Ferrari reportedly sacrificed engine power to make the concept work properly, with estimates suggesting losses of several horsepower because the exhaust flow became partially restricted. And Ferrari still believed the trade was worth it. That tells you how powerful the aerodynamic gain truly was. But Formula One never allows secrets to stay hidden for long. The moment rival engineers realized Ferrari may have discovered a breakthrough, panic spread across the paddock. Mercedes reacted immediately. McLaren started experimenting. Red Bull joined the development race. Suddenly, multiple teams were rushing to build their own versions before Ferrari could fully dominate with the concept. And ironically, that may have triggered Ferrari's greatest nightmare. Because once several teams begin aggressively chasing the same loophole, the FIA starts seeing danger. Not only in performance, in politics, in development costs, in the possibility of another full-scale aerodynamic arms race taking over Formula One. And that is exactly when Ferrari's greatest innovations suddenly became the center of one of the biggest technical controversies the sport has seen in years. What happened next is exactly why tensions inside Ferrari reportedly exploded. Because from Ferrari's perspective, this no longer looked like the FIA protecting the sport. It looked like Formula One reacting to fear. The moment rival teams started understanding how dangerous Ferrari's concept really was, discussions about banning it suddenly accelerated fast behind closed doors. And inside the paddock, timing like that changes everything. Think about the sequence carefully. Ferrari spends months developing a breakthrough. The system works. The lap time gains become impossible to ignore. Mercedes begins exploring similar concepts. McLaren reacts. Red Bull reacts. And then, just as the entire grid starts chasing Ferrari's idea, the FIA moves towards shutting the whole thing down before 2027. That is why this situation feels so explosive emotionally. Because Ferrari believes they follow the regulations exactly as written. They did not fail inspections. They did not hide illegal components. They simply interpreted the rules more aggressively than everyone else. And Formula One has always rewarded teams willing to do that first. That is how legends are built in this sport. The double diffuser era, ground effect breakthroughs, flexible aerodynamic concepts. Every dominant Formula One dynasty started because somebody understood the regulations before the rest of the grid did. Ferrari believed the flicktail mode was their version of that moment. But according to the report, Ferrari now stands almost completely isolated politically, with 4 out of the 5 engine manufacturers willing to support the ban. And political isolation inside Formula One can become catastrophic, because championships are not won only through engineering. They are also won through influence, technical alliances, private negotiations, votes behind closed doors. Sometimes the most important battles happen far away from the racetrack. And Ferrari fans know exactly how painful those battles can become. Back in 2020, Ferrari already suffered heavily after FIA technical directives targeted areas surrounding their engine philosophy. Ferrari itself later admitted the team lost part of its competitive advantage after adapting to the changes. Now the paddock is quietly comparing the current situation to that exact period. And that comparison should genuinely terrify Ferrari. Because Formula One history shows something brutal. When a team builds an entire project around one revolutionary concept, removing that concept rarely hurts only one area of the car. Everything starts changing at the same time. Balance changes. Tire behavior changes. Driver confidence changes. Development direction changes. And sometimes the entire project slowly begins collapsing from the inside before fans even realize what is happening. That is exactly why Lewis Hamilton's frustration reportedly feels so intense right now. Because Hamilton knows this opportunity may be his last realistic championship window. Every season matters more now. Every regulation cycle matters more. Every technical decision matters more. He did not leave Mercedes searching for a long rebuilding process. He joined Ferrari because he believed they were finally building something capable of beating Red Bull consistently. Something revolutionary. Something dangerous. And now, before that future even fully arrives, the FIA is already removing critical parts of the foundation. That emotional pressure changes everything inside team, especially inside Ferrari. Because Ferrari is not just another Formula One team. Ferrari carries expectation differently, pressure differently, failure differently. And the deeper investigators looked into Ferrari's philosophy, the more another controversial area of the car started attracting FIA attention. The halo. Because Ferrari was not only finding speed at the rear of the car, they were finding performance almost everywhere the regulations left even the smallest opening. The deeper the FIA investigated Ferrari's philosophy, the more one thing became impossible to ignore. Ferrari was not relying on one isolated innovation. They were building an entire car around exploiting every tiny gap inside the regulations before anyone else could react. And nowhere was that mindset more obvious than around the halo. Now, for most fans, the halo is simply the protective structure above the driver's head. A safety device. Nothing more. But Ferrari looked at it differently. They saw airflow. They saw opportunity. and they saw free aerodynamic performance hidden inside an area most teams treated cautiously. Ferrari introduced small aerodynamic winglets near the base of a halo, using them to redirect airflow around the cockpit into critical areas of the car. On television, the pieces looked tiny, almost meaningless. But Formula One engineers obsess over tiny details because tiny details decide championships. Think about an airplane wing. A small change in airflow can completely alter balance, efficiency, and stability. Ferrari understood that every millimeter of clean airflow matters when the fastest cars in the world are separated by hundredths of a second. And this is where Ferrari became incredibly aggressive. The new regulations introduced a narrower central halo pillar, creating extra legal space around the structure. Ferrari immediately exploited that opening before most rivals fully understood its potential. That detail says everything about Ferrari's current philosophy. Most teams read regulations trying to avoid mistakes. Ferrari read them searching for hidden opportunities. And eventually, the FIA realized something dangerous was beginning to happen. Because once one team discovers aerodynamic performance inside a safety structure, every other team is forced to follow. Suddenly, the halo stops being purely about protection and becomes another expensive aerodynamic battlefield. That is reportedly one of the biggest reasons the FIA now wants those concepts restricted for 2027. But Ferrari's problems do not stop there. Because while the paddock focused on the aerodynamic controversy, another technical battle was quietly developing inside the engine itself. And this one could become even more damaging long-term. The FIA has already tightened regulations surrounding engine compression ratios, confirming that no power unit can exceed a 16:1 ratio under real operating conditions. Now, that sounds deeply technical, but the basic idea is actually very simple. Imagine compressing a spring tighter and tighter before releasing it. The more efficiently energy is compressed, the more power can be extracted afterward. Modern Formula One engines work in a very similar way. And according to the report, Ferrari invested heavily into an aggressive engine philosophy built around pushing those limits harder than rivals. At first, FIA checks only measure compression while engines were cold. But starting from June 1st, the Federation will also measure those values under hot operating conditions, where real performance differences appear during racing. That changes everything, because some systems behave completely differently once temperatures rise during actual race conditions. And suddenly Ferrari finds itself under pressure from every direction at the same time. Rear aerodynamics, halo airflow concepts, engine interpretation, future regulation votes, political isolation, all while Lewis Hamilton prepares for what may be the final championship window of his entire career. And this is why the atmosphere inside Ferrari reportedly feels so tense right now. Because Ferrari did not build this project expecting half the foundations to become controversial. They genuinely believed they were building the future of Formula One. Now they are watching the FIA slowly close every opening they discovered before rivals could fully catch up. And hanging over all of this is one race, Canada. Because Ferrari can still legally use every one of these systems there, which means the Canadian Grand Prix suddenly becomes much bigger than a normal race weekend. It becomes a statement, a final demonstration, one last opportunity for Hamilton and Ferrari to show the entire world exactly what this car was capable of before Formula One changed the rules around them forever. And if Ferrari suddenly looks dominant there, the political storm surrounding these FIA decisions may become impossible to contain.